Hey everyone, Paul Balachik with Aradani Studios here for part 2 of our Tron Disc mod. I'm going to be mounting the EL wire and the LED strip. So now that we've removed the plastic C-ring, it is time to mount the EL wire onto the top half of the disc. I purchased 2 feet of EL wire from elwirepros.com, and pretty much you just slide it in, and if you need to, flip it over and feed it in that way. You pretty much only need about a ½ inch, down underneath. You don't need very much left over. So you bring it, tuck it in the other side, and just pull it nice and gently, and it'll fit right in. And just trim off any excess, which is actually beneficial because the shorter the EL wire, the brighter it will glow. So just cut it off about an inch apart, or an inch with an inch hanging over, excuse me. And you'll notice it's recessed a little bit. I don't like it being recessed. I like it actually to be elevated slightly, so that way the glow spreads out a little bit better, as well as it hides all of the inside parts of the disc that I might not want to see. And this step is going to be pretty much just hot glue and lots of hot glue. Ignore the fact that you see 2 quick connect cords. I had an extra piece of EL wire lying around and was trying to see if I mounted 2 pieces, if it would glow brighter, and it's not noticeable. So just ignore that. It's not worth trying to do that. So pretty much right now the goal is just to take the EL wire, to put hot glue down, and just blow it and cool it off. And try your best not to move it until it's thoroughly dry. Otherwise it'll, because of the wire has a curvature to it, if you let go too soon it will lift up, and then it'll stretch the glue and it won't be where you wanted it to be. The main goal is to make sure that when you glue it down, that it's glued down snugly, but I like when I glue it down for it to be elevated about 1 millimeter or so above the surface of the disc. It just makes it look a little bit cleaner, a little bit more professional, since as a tube, if it's elevated up more, the thicker part is closer to the surface of the disc, and it just gives it a nice finished look. Most important part now, though, is just to carefully put hot glue and slowly glue it down, blow on it, and just continue to move around the disc as you're going. And I'm going to cut the camera now and pretty much do the rest of the gluing with the camera turned off, and then I'll be back. And so here it is with the entire EL wire glued down. As you can see, it's elevated above the surface of the disc. I prefer that rather than just sinking it all the way down. As you can see, there's 1 quick connect cord, and now I'm ready to do something else. At this point, we're pretty much done with the half the disc that we mounted the EL wire to. There's nothing really left to do on that side for the time being. So we're going to take the other side of the disc, and we are going to mount the LED strip to the outer channel that we carved using our Dremel. We're also going to be mounting some battery components and some inverters, so we want to make sure that we have space inside of there when we're mounting those pieces. The AAA battery holder is the biggest component that we need to figure out where that's going to go. The 12-volt battery holders are going to go into the battery compartment that we dremeled out in part 1. The LED strips that I bought are 1-foot sections that are connected with a quick connect piece. I like to connect those up and then to tape them together with electrical tape, so that way I don't have to worry about them coming apart when I'm dancing, running around, doing whatever I'm doing at conventions. The nice thing about these LED strips is that the spacing between the LEDs is slightly larger than the thickness of the electrical tape. So when you tape it down, it doesn't block the LEDs at all, and so it's I don't know, serendipitous. So before I mount and start gluing my LED strip, I like to test it with a battery and just double check, because the last thing you want to do is to start gluing down the strip and realize halfway along that you have a burned out LED. So pretty much you're just going to follow that channel that you made, and you're going to glue it down as tightly as you can into that channel, so that way the disc will close when you connect the two parts, the two halves in the next section. So the first thing to do is just press it down and then start gluing it in. You'll notice that there's only about 6 inches of wires coming out of the end of my LED strip. I've already cut the wires so it's shorter, so I didn't have to worry about such a bulky mess of wires sort of getting in my way. But the main thing is just putting down glue. Usually I like to try to glue the LED strip to random pieces of plastic that are sticking up vertically from the disc surface, so that way it has sort of a peg that the hot glue is drying around. I feel that it glues down a little bit better than when you just try to glue it down to the flat surface of the disc side. So at this point I've glued down most of the LED strip except for around the battery compartment, and I realized that I'm going to need to go downstairs and Dremel it some more. It's just not, I didn't Dremel down deep enough, and I'm afraid that the LED strip is going to have a little ridge in it, and it's not going to allow me to close the disc snugly. So I'm going to go downstairs and Dremel that a little better. So here it is, fully mounted. I have Dremeled it all out. I have glued it all down, and it's nice and even. It's solid. Around the battery compartment it's a little bit raised, but not too much. And at that point everything is spaced out evenly, and the two pieces end perfectly, so that the end of one is right where the beginning of the other disc was. And so you have this, you don't have to worry about cutting it or any of that or bending it around. And so what you want to test now is you want to line up the disc, line up the two C-rings, and make sure that the disc closes snugly and that there's no gap along the inner ring. The outer ring, because of the LED strip, is going to have a little bit of a bulge to it, but it's not going to be really noticeable. But you want to make sure that you can push it down snugly and get it to lock in place. And what I'm pointing at here, the EL wire, because it's now in that spot behind the C-ring, the button and the small pieces of plastic that hold that button in place were getting in my way. And so you'll notice after you've started to mount your lighting, you may notice that there are pieces of plastic that when you try to close the disc, that it doesn't close as well as you would like. So at that point, just pull your Dremel out again and Dremel through small pieces. Right now I'm showing you the location of where we recommend to put the switch to control the outer LED strip on your disc. Your C-ring is pretty much going to be lit up all night, so you don't really need to worry about where the switch is for there. So we're going to put the switch for the EL wire where the original toy switch was. However, the switch for controlling the outer ring is going to go inside of that little tiny case where the speaker was when we first opened up the disc. The switches I bought are double pole, double throw discs from Radio Shack. You could use a single pole, single throw, sort of like a light switch in your house. Unfortunately, Radio Shack doesn't seem to have small usable single pole, single throws. So in this case I bought two different types. I bought a very small one, and I also bought a heavy duty one. After having experience with both the heavy duty and the smaller one, I would definitely recommend the heavy duty one. You will have to Dremel down the switch itself. It's a little too tall for this project, but you'll cut about 2/3, a half of it to 2/3 of it off, and it'll work perfectly in the disc. But it just has a better feel. It feels more solid. It feels like it's not going to break, which is the most important thing. Our LED strip is going to be wired up to two 12-volt battery holders that are going to be wired in parallel, not in series. We want to keep the voltage the same, but we want to increase the amp hours of the batteries, so we're going to run those in parallel. And so you just connect the positive to the positive and the negative to the negative, and then wire it up as you normally would to the LED strip. What I'm going to do is, since these are mounted into that battery compartment on the original toy, I'm going to take those downstairs. I'm going to grind the sides of them just to make them a little bit more narrow, and then I'm going to super glue them together to make a single unit that has the red wires coming out of one end and the black wires coming out of the other, to make it easier to wire those in parallel. but I'm about to go downstairs and grind those so that they will be ready for part 3. And that is part 2 of mounting the lighting for our Tron Disc modification. If you have any questions, please comment or send us an email.